Amanda Smith here with Kim Adams. I am so pumped to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I was telling you I had seen a bunch of your episodes with people that I really look up to in the industry. So when you asked me, I was like, what? She wants me to be on it. So yeah, thank you. Hopefully I can provide some insight for some people, but this will be fun.
No, it's like anytime anyone is like, I watched that or I listened to that, like you hope people do, but I don't know, you never like expect it. So I was like, whoa, really? And I was just telling Kim, it was so fun to watch you all during the WNBA playoffs. You killed it. So I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. I'm sure we'll talk more about it. But yeah, I'd watched Sarah
Way to
Kusta,
preach that.
Doris Burke. Obviously, everyone loves them. So I'd watched their episodes with you, and it's so helpful to me. So hopefully I can pass on a little bit of insight, even though I feel like I'm still like relatively new to the industry.
I think that that's like why I'm so excited to have you though, because I know that a lot of like young broadcasters and people who are like trying to get a start in the industry watch this show. So it's like, let's get that insight. Did y'all like that preview? You're going to have to wait for it because I saw that you did your graduate program at Northwestern, which means you spent some time in Chicago, which is where I'm from. And
Oh, I did not know
anytime,
that.
yes, anytime I have like a someone who spent time in Chicago on the show, I have to ask them their pizza preference.
Oh, okay. So this is an interesting one for me because I'm from New York.
Oh,
Um,
I'm jealous.
so I when I got to Chicago, I look at Chicago pizza as a different type of meal than pizza.
Mm,
Um, with that being said, I liked Giordano's.
okay.
Um, I the thing with me in Chicago pizza is I'm not a big sauce person. Like I like very light sauce on my pizza, and I feel like there's so much. It's just like a layer of sauce on the top, and then obviously all the good cheese inside. So it was like very interesting for me coming from New York. Like pizza is life, but I look at it as a different meal. It's good, and I'll say I like Giordano's the best.
That was a very good answer. Way to like be like, I'm from New York, but I love Chicago pizza, but there's a lot of sauce. You that was very like politically pizza correct.
I No, I don't want to upset the Chicago pizza people, but some people have gotten upset when I've said that. They're like, "No, it's pizza," and I'm like, it's more like a lasagna or something." I feel
Oh,
like.
that's interesting. I've never thought about it that way, but now you're gonna next time I'm like back home cutting up my deep dish, I'll be like, Kim was right. So now, like many of us, myself included, we see you broadcasting college and professional basketball. But having been a former college basketball player yourself, what really drew you to the media side?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of a career change for me, honestly. It was something I had like kind of distantly in the back of my mind thought about in high school. But then when it came time to choose colleges, like you said, I played basketball. I was also a swimmer. So I was being recruited for both sports. So I wasn't necessarily looking at schools for a major or a program. I really wanted to go to a good school, a good of a school as I could, just kind of overall academically. And then I had to choose, was I going to swim? Was I going to play basketball? So I went to Penn in Philly, where I actually just moved back to. So I was playing basketball there. We didn't have any sort of journalism, broadcasting. I fell more into the business side of sports. So really, all of my internships in college were on the business side. I spent 2 summers with Major League Baseball, actually. I was doing advertising and marketing. And then I got to intern at Comcast Sportsnet Philly, which is now NBC Sports Philly, my senior year. But I was on the marketing side, but that's kind of when I first got to see into TV and was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But once I graduated, I kind of was like, all right, I probably should get like a reasonable job, like start to make some money. So I started working for Turner Sports in New York, but I was on the ad sales side. And I'd been there like a year or so and just felt like I didn't love it. I was kind of going through the motions. And that's when I started to think about broadcasting again. So I literally had no experience, nothing aside from playing and like being interviewed myself. Um, so that's when I thought I should probably go to grad school for this, which you definitely don't need to do. But that's kind of the path I took. So I ended up going to Northwestern, and that's how I got into the media side of it. But definitely like just growing up as a junkie of the game, just watching so many games and like I just remember when I was in middle school, high school, like my dad and I and brothers would watch the games, and like a big part of it was me learning from the broadcasters at basketball wise. My dad would be like, "Oh, listen to Jeff Van Gundy or whoever," and I would really learn stuff. So that's kind of a side of it that I like now is, I'm trying to teach the young me's who are now watching the game. So it's kind of a roundabout way that I got into the industry.
You mentioned your dad and your two brothers. Your mom also played college basketball. So, like, basketball's strong in the Adams family bloodline. What sort of impact do you feel your family has had on your career?
Yeah, it's been everything. We were like literally a ball is life family. Like my parents would tell me story. I'm the oldest kid, so my dad would like bring me to like Sunday basketball, like at the wherever elementary school. Like I was like in my little carriage or whatever, and my mom would show up, and like he wasn't like watching me or anything. But yeah, so both my parents played Division 1. My mom was my high school coach actually in New York. We had a really good team. My dad also was a men's basketball official. He just retired a couple years ago. And then both my brothers played collegiately. One played baseball, one played basketball. But really, so much of my knowledge of the game comes from growing up in that household. And I think with me, like when I'm in the industry now, like I didn't play in a major conference. I wasn't in the Final Four. I didn't play in the ACC. I didn't play in the SEC. And I think when people listen to me and they're like, oh, she played in the Ivy League. She wasn't, a National Player of the Year candidate. But when they really listen to me, I think they could tell, wow, she's really knowledgeable of the game. And so much of that comes from growing up in the household that I did with two parents who are really knowledgeable of the game, and just learning it from different perspectives, learning it from my parents who were players, learning it from my mom as a coach, learning it from my dad as an official. That's like a big part of my broadcasting now is making sure I'm up on all the rules because my dad said, as an official, they get so frustrated when the announcers are saying the wrong things about the calls they're making. So I like literally study the rule book and make sure I'm up on, all of the points of emphasis and the new rule changes. That's something I'm still studying for this season because they came out with a new rule book for men's and women's this year.
Even with all of the work that you do now at a national level, you put out a post saying a lot of that is still on a freelance or part-time basis. How do you continue to seek out those opportunities?
Yeah. So I just finished this is really the end of my 5th year of doing this. January will be my starting of my 6th year. And it's been hard, to be honest. I'm sure I'm sure a lot of people that hopefully a lot of people listen to this, and hopefully a lot of them can resonate. But even to this point where I'm doing national stuff for ESPN, national stuff for Fox, um, I'm still freelancing and I have like really busy times and then really slow times. And I mentioned I was a swimmer. I've actually like always throughout this 5-year period that I'm doing this, I've always done swim coaching on the side because I need like a secondary job, a secondary income. Um, so it hasn't been easy. I would say like for every opportunity I get, every job I get, I probably got like 5 to 10 rejections or no reply to an email or, oh, you were a finalist, but we went with someone else. So I think that's important too when you're going through this industry is like, you see people, oh, wow, that's a great job she has. She got, a big opportunity, but they don't see, oh, I got like rejected from these 5 jobs before I got this one. So I've had times where I'm like, man, like, can I really keep doing this financially? I want to be able to, have a nice apartment and do nice things and, afford things and like live. And there's been times where I'm like, I don't know if like financially I can keep doing this, but every time I kind of, sit down and I remember like just how happy I am when I'm working and doing these games. and I don't want to go back to like a 9 to 5 desk job. So that's what's kind of gotten me to keep persevering. And I have always kind of had to have that side job. But I actually have really enjoyed the swim coaching. And I was just listening to your episode with Doris Burke, and she talked about how she misses coaching. And that's something I really enjoy because I'm working with males and females, but I feel like really important that the females have a strong female presence in their life. And these are kids as young as, 7, 10, high school. So it's kind of been like a blessing that I've gotten to do that. But ultimately, I would like to hopefully be doing broadcasting more full time and a little bit less swim coaching. But yeah, I've had to just stick with it and not take rejection and bad news too personally, and just kind of be like, all right, they're lost. On to the next job, on to the next opportunity.
You mentioned wanting to provide a strong female presence for the players or swimmers you coach now. Having been an athlete yourself, in what ways do you feel that sports can motivate and encourage young girls?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you can get lessons from sports that you can't get anywhere else. I actually just spoke to a high school team back in my area when I was home for Thanksgiving, and that was like, that just made my day. I think it's so important for us to have female role models. I think a big thing I talked to them about was leadership, how we are seeing more female leaders, and we want to continue to breed them and just continue to have people to look up to. But yeah, I think it's so important. The lessons you get in sports, like I said, you can't learn that anywhere else. Whether it's the lows in sports, losing, like I lost a state championship at the buzzer, but like to have your team come together in the locker room after, or the bus ride, and like everyone's emotional and crying, like there's not many other walks of life where you can get stuff like that. Teamwork, leadership, battling adversity. I think it's so important for young girls to be involved in sports and many sports. I know it's something that I want to hopefully continue to be involved with, whether talking to teams or being involved with programs. But it's definitely pretty much, I would say, almost everything that I've come to be today. So much of that is either from my family or from playing sports.
We see you doing all of these amazing things, but you said, kind of like many of us, you're still just trying to figure it out. What are some of the hopes that you have for your career in the future?
Yeah. So just kind of immediately, like I was telling you, and every year I have been getting more and more work. So that's kind of my like immediate goal, or not necessarily concern, but just every year to be getting more and more opportunities. Like even so far for my college schedule for January for Fox, like I'm already so much busier than I was last year, which is great. Obviously the WNBA stuff came out of nowhere. So I'm hoping I'll be asked back to do that again, and hopefully get to do even more games. And then really just doing more like postseason college basketball, like being able to extend my season. Um, and I think that's also a problem that hopefully we're working towards. But like women's basketball has so much less coverage in the non-conference. So as broadcasters, if you're primarily just doing women's college basketball, a lot of us don't get busy until like conference play starts in January. Like I think it was a prime example just a week or two ago. There were literally 3 top 10 matchups on one day in women's basketball. Not one of them was on TV. Um, so for me, always been trying to find, piece together different things so that I have enough work. I just moved to Philly, so hopefully I'll get my feet wet here, start getting involved in some local broadcasting stuff here. But yeah, immediate future for me is just continuing to put myself out there, do a great job at the games I have, because you never know who's watching. And wow, she did a great job at that. Why aren't we using her, or why aren't we using her more? Maybe we want to use her on men's. So just to really take advantage of every single opportunity I get, and do the best I can, and hope that it leads to more down the road.
Are these contacts you're seeking out on your own? Do you have an agent? What's the backstory?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because I actually don't have an agent at this point. It's something I've been exploring, but have never really found the perfect fit or found someone that I really feel like believes in me and like shares the same vision. So everything I've done now has been without an agent, and it's really all been contacts, people working with me and recommending me for other things. Like just staying on top of people. So basically, I started off doing all digital stuff. I started working for the Big East Conference, their digital network. I started doing like men's college games on ESPN3, sideline reporting, then eventually analyst work. And really, everything just built up from there. Like the Big East had a partnership with Fox, and I would be meeting the people who were hiring for the games at media days and stuff, and just staying in touch. And I probably sent them my stuff for like 3 years before I finally got an email one day like, hey, I have an opportunity for you. Did a good job. That game turned into more, and that game turned into more games the following year, more games this year. And then like the ESPN stuff, I had just kind of been sending them my stuff again for years. And I remember getting one email probably like 2 or 3 years ago that kind of like, I feel like it was like a game changing email for me. Because at first I got it and I was like almost mad. Like they told me, oh, she's doing okay, but she still has a long way to go. She looks like she lacks confidence, blah, blah, blah. And, when you're a broadcaster, you're like, I think I'm doing well. Like, I think I'm ready to take a jump. And then I got this email and it kind of like brought me like, not that I was, I've always been humble, but this was kind of like shook me like, wow, like the words I'm seeing. So at first I was like mad, and then I was like, you know what? Like, I know I could do this. I feel like maybe all that I have to offer isn't coming through on the screen and on the camera. So I almost like took it from an athlete approach, and kind of like I was very competitive, like fiercely competitive. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna like take this as like a chip on my shoulder. I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna show them I can do this, and I'm gonna go into meetings and be more forceful, go into interviews and be confident and be like, I know I can do this job. I know I can do it well. So I think that email I got kind of changed the perspective for me. And like 2 or 3 years later, I was hired by ESPN. But again, that literally came from just staying on top of them, sending them my updated reel, checking in. And the person who hired me for WNBA, I guess someone had put his stuff across his desk, and I was doing a game for the Connecticut Sun. They had hired me as an analyst for a couple games, filling in for Sarah. And he literally, like, I guess knew I was doing that game and watched it, and then called me after the game or emailed me and said I may have an opportunity. And he was like, I have an opening for a sideline reporter. Can you be on a plane to Phoenix in 2 days? I was like, yeah. So it's like just crazy. You never know when that opportunity's coming, and I think it always comes at the right time. You may think you're ready, and you'll get rejected from jobs, but in reality, like you weren't ready for that moment. But when it came a year or two later, like I could say yes, and I went and did that game and was like, I don't know if I'm ready for this moment, but I'm gonna pretend like I am. And I guess it went well because then they gave me a bunch more games. Sorry, that was like probably a roundabout answer for what you
No way.
asked.
That was like the best story ever. Are you kidding? To look back on when you first got that initial email and then to think of being able to call and report on games on ESPN, what was that kind of feeling like for you?
Yeah. On like I just told you the story, it all happened so quickly that at first it didn't even hit me. Like I got that call. I remember it was like pouring rain on the phone. I was driving home from Mohegan Sun back to outside of New York City where I was living at the time. And he was like, yeah, like Holly Rowe can't do it. She's doing the Women's College World Series. I was like, I'm filling in for Holly Rowe. Like, what? And then he said I was going to be working with Pam Ward and LaChina Robinson, who are like big time. And I had briefly met Pam before, and I had worked with LaChina before. Um, but I was like, wow. So I literally like got home late. I guess that was a Tuesday night. Like Wednesday, I was like, okay, I need to like get an outfit, start doing preparation. And then I was on the plane Thursday. So I feel like it didn't really hit me until after. Um, but then when I started to get more games throughout the summer and started to do the playoffs, it felt really, really gratifying. And because it's been so hard for me, and not so hard, but it's been difficult, and as it is for so many of us, I'll never take an assignment for granted, whether it's one game, whether it's a package of 10, whether it's the whole playoffs. I'm so appreciative of every assignment I get. So I think I always seem to like reflect if I'm like traveling to games. For some reason, when I'm like flying and landing or like taking off like after the game, that's kind of when I'm like, wow, like I'm really doing this. Like I remember having conversations with friends like 8, 10 years ago being like, I really wish I could get into sports broadcasting, but I have no idea how. So just to kind of reflect, which is very important to like reflect on how far you've come and where you are now. It definitely was kind of like, wow, like I'm doing this, and obviously I still have a long way to go. But it's very important, I think, to recognize that success and your growth.
Yes, how she did it. I'm obsessed. Yes, I had to plug the name of the pod.
Of course.
But through those, I feel like early on, there can be a lot of inconsistency in this business. Through those moments and challenges, what has kept you motivated?
Yeah. I think, as I briefly mentioned before, just the passion and that I felt when I am doing this work and how much I enjoy it. And I think back to, my job at Turner Sports, where I was sitting at a desk for 10 hours a day, commuting an hour and a half each way, and just kind of just never wanting to go back to something like that. And just seeing, my job is literally watching basketball and talking about it. So even in the days leading up to a game, when I'm like doing my game prep, like I'm watching film, like basketball has always been such a big part of my life. To be able to do that for a living is very motivating, and just makes me happy. So that's a big part of it. I would also say I'm very big on like surrounding yourself with people who are also very motivated and successful, not necessarily in your own field. Like really, my whole family, my brothers are in sales for sports, and they're really motivating to me. My dad is a really successful mediator in New York City, and he just works so hard to get where he is. And then I look at my friends, they're passing the bar exam, they're doctors, they're starting their own businesses. And just kind of whenever I'm having a down day, whenever I see like good news for them, it kind of like motivates me. Like I got to keep going too. Like I got to, keep this circle up. And I think that's really important too. Like I have, so many friends that I've gotten close with in the business, and we kind of all go through these times. Obviously, now you're my new friend. We'll be going through these
Yes, I
times
was
too.
just okay, yay.
But it's like we'll have these texts where it's like, man, I got turned down from another job, blah, blah, blah. And we just kind of like uplift each other and remind each other that we are talented and that moment is going to come. So just to have supportive people in your life and people who are inspiring you and successful in their own walks of life as well, I think is really important and has been really helpful to me.
Wait, I'm obsessed with you. Guys, coming up, me and my new friend Kim, we're playing a game and she's building her own basketball team. I know y'all want to know what it is, so stick around.
Okay.
Welcome back inside How She Did It. Still here with Kim Adams. And now Kim is going to build her own basketball team, but with people that have maybe impacted your life. So I saw that you were a guard.
Oh,
So we've got you there. Okay.
shoot her.
Yeah. Shoot or shoot. Shoot or shot. So now we need like a point guard, right? Like a facilitator. So someone that has maybe given you direction.
Okay. Someone
You
who's
see where I'm
given me.
going with this?
Yeah. I'm gonna keep it all in the How She Did It podcast, and I'm gonna give the ball to Sarah Kustok running the point. She's been there for me since day one when I was in grad school at Northwestern. Like literally a random like friend that I didn't even really know, like a friend of a friend from Penn was like a friend of hers, and asked her if she would connect with me, and she was like, sure. So it started with a phone call when I was in grad school, and she's just been so incredibly like helpful and motivating and just like a good friend and mentor. So she's been awesome for me. So I'm gonna give her the point guard duties. I think she may have been a shooting guard too, but I'm confident she can take on this role.
She's the best. Sarah with the assist. Okay, let's go another guard. You know, someone you can rely on, like you said, shoot or shoot. And you just know that in like those big moments, they'll always be there.
Does this have to be like media person?
No, not at all.
Okay, this I'm gonna have to give to my best friend who coincidentally was my opposite guard in high school. Her name is Liz Fuchs. She's in women's basketball as well. She's an assistant coach at Army West Point. But we literally went to school together since first grade, played on the same basketball team, fifth grade, all through high school. Like everyone, we were like Kim and Liz. Like we were like a package deal. Like we were always together. We like literally almost scored like the exact same number of points in high school. So she's my dependable friend for life, Liz Fuchs.
I love it. Yes. Okay, we've got three now. And we're going to get like, into our forward position. Someone who's versatile, can be inside, maybe outside, but someone that you can kind of look at and learn from.
Look at and learn from. That could be Sarah as well.
Oh my gosh, she's like in every position. I'm obsessed.
I'll keep it in the show once again, and this is like obviously a seemingly cliche answer, but how can you not go with Doris, who might be undersized at the forward position, but where she resonates with where I am now is she does a little bit of everything. She does sideline reporting, she does analyst work, and that's what I do now. I do both, and I would like to do more hosting. But just to see kind of how she transitions from role to role, how she prepares, the type of information she delivers on air, that's always kind of what I'm looking to learn from is what did Doris or whoever I'm watching see in that moment? How did they tie it back to a piece of information I got from shoot around? So yeah, Doris Burke in terms of just her versatility, and the level she's been able to attain and how she's done everything: college, men's, women's, NBA, WNBA, which is something I hope to do too.
All right, last one. We've got our center. I always think, like strong. I'm not talking physically strong, but who is a strong influence in your life?
I can't, man, I can't really choose between both of my parents.
You have to. You can't have six players on the court. You know the rules. I'm just kidding. That's okay. I'm just joking.
Okay, I'll make my mom the center with like dad's six man ready to sub in just because I'll did I make an all female team? I think I did. So we'll keep it an all female team. But yeah, my mom, she's great. I mean, both my parents really, not only just the gift of basketball they gave me, but like I was telling you, like it's always been hard for me, just continuing to push through. And both of my parents always have supported me in any way I need, and just continuing to push me to keep doing this and watching all my games, giving me feedback. And my mom was my high school coach, which was really special, but she had like such an impact on so many girls that she coached, getting girls to college who, never thought that would have been a possibility. So yeah, my parents have always held it down for me and been such a big part of who I've become and my success, and hopefully more success that's to come. It's a pretty good team.
That's a pretty, like, that's an
Good.
amazing team. Yes. And I was going to say, like, your dad can just still be on the court as an official.
Yeah.
Problem
Absolutely.
solved.
Why didn't I think of that?
I got you. Don't
Good.
worry. Coming
You're
up, guys, Kim's answering some of your questions. Stick around. Welcome back inside How She Did It. Still here with Kim Adams. She hasn't left yet, but she's getting ready to soon after she answers some of your guys' questions. So, first up is from DSPN Rivers. And he says, favorite team to follow at any level?
Well, unfortunately, I'm from New York, so basically all of the teams I grew up a fan of are awful. Knicks, we've got the Mets, and we've got the Giants. I'm basically the trifecta of awful teams. So that's been tough. I'm trying to think. Someone literally tweeted at me like, "You should marry a psychologist" or something, which is probably true. Um, I do like what's going on in Brooklyn right now with the Nets. So I don't know if people may be like critical of me if I'm kind of jumping ship to like cheer for the Nets, but like they have so much more going there, leadership, organization wise. Obviously, they brought in some great players. Kevin Durant waiting to see the floor. So I've been following them, and now that I'm in Philly, I was born to like hate Philly sports from New York. So I don't like the Eagles. I don't like the Phillies. But I will support the Sixers. I haven't gone to a game yet, but I want to get to a game. But they're like another team that just has some good vibes going. I like the direction they're headed. The city is really excited about them. So now that I'm in Philly, I'm definitely going to be following the Sixers more. Trust the process.
Yes, I've heard that like Philly fans too are one of a kind.
Oh yeah, they are. When I was interning at Comcast back in the day, I had to like go to the Eagles games before the game, and we were like promoting the pregame show, like handing out signs, and the people were like brutal. So it'll be interesting dealing with some of the Philly fans here for sure.
But now you can be a part of it. So you're on the other side.
I know.
You're on
Hopefully,
like
I'm
the
not.
E now.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it more on the civilized side, as some of the Philly fans I've seen.
Okay. Next up is from OG Cheeseman. Love the username. What is your dream game to call?
Dream game to call. I'd say for now, so my favorite sporting event of all time of life will always be is March Madness. A lot of that comes from my dad being an official because he officiated in it for about 10 years. So this was when I was little, and there was no like March Madness live app or whatever it is now, and every game is on TV. So like my mom would literally take me and my two younger brothers like to a sports bar, and we would have to ask them like to find this like wild channel that my dad's game was on, and somehow they would find it. So really like my dad officiating and going to his games is like really where I started to love basketball and just love March Madness. I have covered it in the past when I was working for the Big East. I was working there when Villanova won the championship in 2016 in Houston. So I was at the Final Four at the national championship. But I would love to be working on the broadcast team. And I did get to do it for women's last year. I called a regional final Elite Eight game for Westwood One national radio. So that was really cool. But I would love to be working on a broadcast team for men's March Madness.
That one shining moment, you know?
Oh, yeah, that's I mean, the tears start
Tears.
welling up. Hear that?
I know. There's like this video of me somewhere. This is gonna haunt me one day of me like singing that whole song into a remote. So
That's
that's out
amazing.
there somewhere. I don't know who has it. Okay,
Surface.
right? Too many nicknames, 20. Curious what some of them are, but what is the most difficult part of your job?
Um, It's hard to say like something even is difficult about this job because it's just literally watching, observing, analyzing, talking about basketball, which is like unreal. Um, I would say if there's anything difficult, especially when you have like a busy stretch of games, like several games in a week, um, just making sure you're fully prepared and compartmentalizing all of the information into like the information that's going to be in front of you in the game or in your head. So like I already know, like I just got assigned a game yesterday for Fox, and I now have like 3 games in like a week stretch, a Friday game and a Sunday game, different conferences, one on the East Coast, one in the Midwest. So that's obviously really exciting, but I'm kind of already thinking like, all right, it's right after the holidays. I'm gonna need to start like preparing for that one early, whether I'm like starting to just watch more film on the teams to get more familiar, maybe start to set up my charts. But yeah, I do a lot of preparation, especially when I'm the analyst. Preparation is a little different, analyst versus sideline. I definitely spend more time when I'm the analyst because I watch more game film. But yeah, I would just say, like, I never want to go into a broadcast feeling like I'm unprepared. Um, and of course, like, can you ever be fully prepared? I don't think so. Like, you can always read another article or watch another half of a game. But I always want to feel like I go into a game feeling very confident, very comfortable with both teams. So yeah, just making sure you're setting enough time, a few days in advance to start prepping. But yeah, that can get difficult at times, but it's like a difficult challenge that I enjoy. And at the end of the day, like my preparation is watching basketball, so I have no complaints.
All right. Our final question comes from Brandon C. Smith 5. And he says, what is the best piece of advice you have gotten throughout your career?
Um, Best piece of advice. I would say like really 2 things. One, it seems so simple, but just to continue to be yourself. You can't really get caught up in comparing yourself or comparing your career path to other people. You just have to kind of trust that the path you're on. Um, and that was, like I told you, that one email I got from ESPN a couple years back. I can't remember the exact wording, but like more or less, I felt like they were saying I was like boring. So I was like, I feel like I'm like not a boring person in real life. So that's important to me now, is just to make sure like my personality and my energy is coming through whatever platform I'm broadcasting on, whatever role I'm in. So really just to be yourself. Don't try and, yeah, I look up to Doris Burke, I look up to Sarah, but at the end of the day, I'm Kim Adams. And then I was able to have some email exchange with Mike Breen, who's also like another GOAT, Mike and Doris. And I had just been turned down from an NBA sideline reporter job, actually, like I guess like 2 years ago. And I was just like really bummed. I was a finalist. They had flown me out. I did interviews, like thought it went so well. And then got one of those like, oh, it was such a hard choice. We went another direction. And I was just like pretty bummed out at that news. So he had told me a story. He had been like turned down from a job right before he got the Knicks job, and he was like crushed, thought it was the end of the world. And then a year later, he got the Knicks job, and that's like the job that really, obviously, he's still doing and changed his life. So he just kind of told me sometimes like the job you don't get is for a reason, and that next opportunity that you get is the one that may change things for you, and you wouldn't have gotten that otherwise. So just like to hear advice from like people who have become really successful, that like they struggled with rejection and not getting jobs and continued to persevere, that's always been very helpful to me.
I know I really feel like even through just like this series, and then you talk to people within the industry, but everyone's like path to getting there is different, but like the one thing that they just all have in common is they never stopped. And
Yeah.
so like, right? And so you are just amazing. You're continuing to do amazing things. And I can't thank you enough for joining me on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much. This was fun. Sorry if I like rambled at times, but
That's no. There's no such thing as rambling on this show. That's what I'm looking for.
sharp, concise. No, that's why I love podcasts. Podcasts are awesome. You have an amazing one. So I'm very honored to have been a guest on it. Hopefully I can come back in like 5 years and I'll be doing more things and we can reflect.
Yeah, where will we both be in 5 years? I don't know. Find out in 5 years on how she did it.
5 years.
No, thank you so much. And thank you all for listening today. For Kim Adams, I'm Amanda Smith. We'll see you next time on How She Did It.